The selection of the 5 was not made by me, it was done by the festival, so I can only guess why they choose them. There are 2 very new ones which just premiered in November last year, which are now in the cinema in Germany. That's a film about Pepe Mujica and The Queen of Silence, which is a film about a little girl from a Roma community in Poland that is deaf but can dance because somehow she feels music. Beautiful film that is shown here, I think, on Saturday. And they choose one very old one, which I'm very happy about. It's more or less my first international co-production that I did in 1998, I think, or 99, Julia's Madness, which was for me a very important film because it was the first one that I did on a bigger scale. And yeah, so I'm very happy with the selection actually. It's not the most obvious ones that they choose because I've made some films which were probably on bigger festivals and were more heard about, but I'm very happy with the selection. It's a very good selection, very special films, and you feel handwriting behind it. It's good. It's the first time that I'm here. I've never been on that festival, but I enjoy it. It's good. I started a company in 1991, and it was at that time very difficult to start without big capital or anything like that, a small company. So at that time we were more people even in the company, so we somehow survived till 95, 96 when I found out that it doesn't work just by waiting what is coming. You have to work on a profile for a company and you have then to go into that way. And so I looked for my niche that it was available and what I liked. So I focused very much on documentaries and especially on international produced documentaries, so co-production with other countries. And that was pretty new at that time. It was not so obvious because especially in a country like Germany where there was still enough money around and people produced more national and didn't look for the outside world. And that was probably what was new and what I did and how I started, and I think that probably that was exactly the right time because then the money that was available was going down and I was already there and I had already some experience in these international productions, so that was probably quite a good timing. I started first with German directors then, of course, and getting money for their films from outside, but that pretty fast changed also, and also because I built up parallel to that a distribution company for documentaries. I also got connected to a lot of foreign directors, and then I concentrated somehow on Eastern European directors, mainly Russians. So I started to work together with Sergei Loznitsa and later then with Viktor Kossakowsky. And I also started to produce their films, not only sell their films, but also produce their films. And that was also one of the reasons why I later started to produce also fiction films, because these directors wanted to do their first fiction films. So it was mainly Peter Brosens and Jessica Woodward from Belgium, but also then of course Sergei Loznitsa. And we produced in 2010 then My Joy, which was in the competition in Cannes. And so yeah, it developed a little bit out of it itself. It was quite an organic grow of the company and also what I'm doing. I think there are distribution networks in form of sales companies. I think the problem is not so much the networks. I think the main problem is the market. Because if the market is not big enough, why should you start a lot of distribution alternatives? there must be first a market. And I think this is the importance of a festival like this, to create also a market and awareness of documentaries, that they are there, especially when you live in a country where the broadcasters are not showing documentaries so often, creative documentaries. So there is, I think, the place for a festival like this to create an atmosphere where people would like to see it and have maybe also the wish to see more of it. And if you have that, then you can think about distribution platforms. My experience over the last 20 years is, and I can't say anything about Romania, of course, but when I look at Germany, my experience is more that it goes in waves. It is something where you suddenly have an high, and there are people who say, wow, there are documentaries, let's make more of them, let's see more of them. And then it's going down, then it's going up again. That was a little bit my experience. I don't know if that's true everywhere, but I would say, yeah, I think not that there is probably a wish to see something that has to do more with our reality in the moment. But I think it is mainly, besides these events, as I said, like also the work of TV stations and broadcasters to show these kind of films, because we need them as partners, because they are also the ones who can put finance into films. So I think the role of the public TV stations is still very important. I know that a lot of people say, well, we have now our own distribution form in the form of the internet, and we build up platforms there. And that's all very nice, because then the films will be available and people can watch them. But the question is, how do you pay that for them? How do you create them and produce them? Where is the money for the financing of these films coming from? And at least in countries like Germany or France, it is still that 50%, at least 50% of the financing is coming from the public broadcasters. And this is a situation, if this breaks down and the films are not produced anymore because they are not financed, then there's also no need for internet platforms, because the films will not be there. I'm not interested in themes. When I want to make a film, I first ask myself, who is the director I'm working with? Is he talented to make a film? Because, you know, in the end, the difference between a so-called documentation and a documentary is that a documentary is still a film. So it's a film. It is using visual forms to tell a story. And this needs talent. There has to be somebody who can tell a story visually. And that is for me the first choice. And then, secondly, it comes to what kind of subject it is about. And if you look at my catalog, for example, you will see there are all kind of themes. You can talk in a documentary film about everything that you want. It's more the way how you tell it, what is interesting me. There are, of course, some themes which are very difficult to tell in a documentary, because there is hardly any market for it, which makes it a little bit difficult for films that want to go also to festivals and cinemas, because they are hard to finance. Like history, for example, is something that people expect, at least in a country like Germany and France. Again, they expect it to watch that on TV, and therefore it is difficult to finance them for a cinema. But in general, I would say themes are not that what interests me most. Well, no, compared to the fiction films, not, I have to say, unfortunately. But of course there are some, and we see them. But I think there's a big difference between the world seeing Romania in fiction film and documentary, which I guess clearly has to do with the function also of the TV in Romania, because I don't see the Romanian public TV as a big supporter of financing documentaries. And as I said before, if you are not getting the support of the public broadcasters to finance your films, it's very hard to produce them only out of public money available. And then you are totally depending on the international market. The international market needs producers who are able to attend them, who can afford to go there. And I think there the situation in Romania is probably still a little bit underdeveloped when I compare it in the moment with Croatia or Bulgaria, where I see them more, I would say, than Romania on the international market.